The rain-slicked streets of Manhattan gleamed under the neon haze as Elena Harper dashed from the subway, her sketchbook clutched like a shield against the downpour. At 28, she was a whirlwind of creativity trapped in a cycle of survival. Restoring murals by day, dodging eviction notices by night. Her latest gig, a community center fresco depicting Brooklyn's resilient spirit, was her passion project. But the building's owner had just announced redevelopment. Luxury condos. Gentrification's cold blade. She burst into the dimly lit Chelsea gallery, shaking water from her auburn curls. The exhibition was her first in years. Raw canvases protesting corporate greed. Colors clashing like thunder. Sparse crowd. Art critics mingling with the indifferent elite. In the corner, a man in a tailored black suit observed her work with unnerving intensity. Tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp features and eyes like polished obsidian. Alexander Voss. She didn't know his name yet, but his aura screamed power. Billionaire predator in a sea of starving artists. Alexander watched her from afar, his mind a calculator of risks and rewards. At 35, he helmed Voss Tech, an AI juggernaut valued at $50 billion. Governments courted him. Rivals feared him. But tonight, he wasn't hunting acquisitions. His grandmother's will loomed like a guillotine. Marry by 36 or lose half the family fortune to scheming cousins. 3 months left. He needed a fiancée. Plausible. Temporary. Disposable. Her painting drew him. Corporate cannibalism, a cityscape where skyscrapers devoured neighborhoods. It mirrored his own empire's shadows. When the gallery emptied, he approached. Compelling work, he said. Voice smooth as aged scotch. What's the price? Quote. Elena turned. Startled. Not for sale. It's a statement. He smiled faintly. Everything has a price. Ms. Harper. Her eyes narrowed. How do you know my name? Quote. Research. He extended a card. Alexander Voss. CEO. Her stomach twisted. Voss Tech. The very company funding the demolition of her mural site through a subsidiary. She nearly spat, but curiosity held her tongue. The next day, an email arrived. A meeting at his Midtown office. Curiosity won. She arrived at the Voss Tech Tower. A monolith of glass and steel piercing the skyline. Security whisked her to the penthouse boardroom, where polished mahogany tables hosted deals that reshaped industries. Alexander waited, flanked by lawyers, a contract gleaming under halogen lights. $100,000, he stated flatly. For 3 months as my fiancé. Attend events. Charm my family. Secure my inheritance. No intimacy required. Clean break afterward. Elena's laugh echoed hollowly. You're insane. Why me? Quote. You're authentic. My grandmother values heart over polish. And you're untainted by this world. He leaned forward, intensity crackling. The money could save your projects. Your mother's care. She froze. How did he know about her mother's illness? Research. Indeed. The sum tempted her. Debts erased. Mural preserved. But allying with the enemy? This is grotesque, she whispered. Think of it as performance art, he replied. Eyes unreadable. Suspense hung thick as she signed. Heart pounding. What had she unleashed? The first event. A Voss family gala at the Metropolitan Museum. Elena, in a loaned emerald gown that hugged her curves, felt like an imposter amid crystal chandeliers and whispered fortunes. Alexander's arm around her waist sent unintended shivers. His cousins eyed her suspiciously. Marcus, the envious heir apparent, smirking over champagne. Darling, Alexander murmured, lips brushing her ear for show. Smile. She did, but inside, turmoil brewed. His touch lingered too long. His cologne, a mix of sandalwood and ambition, invaded her senses. As they danced, bodies sinking effortlessly, Elena glimpsed vulnerability in his gaze. A man starved for connection beneath the billionaire facade. Back in his limo, silence stretched. You were perfect, he said. Was I? She challenged. Or just a prop in your game? Quote. His jaw tightened. This is no game. Billions at stake. Emotional undercurrents swirled. Elena returned to her apartment. The contract's weight pressing. What if the lines blurred? What secrets hid in his empire? Meanwhile, in Vostek's boardroom, Alexander reviewed Project Aurora, Brooklyn redevelopment. Profits soared on paper, but a small notation caught his eye. Community resistance, including a mural by E. Harper. Coincidence? Or fate's cruel joke? He dismissed it, but unease festered. The next week blurred into rehearsals. Fabricated backstories over caviar dinners. Elena challenged his worldview. Your AI displaces jobs. Evicts families. Is that legacy? Quote. He countered. Innovation lifts all. Without risk. Stagnation. Sparks flew. Not just intellectual. A accidental brush of hands ignited heat. Alexander pulled away first. Mask slipping. Boundaries, he reminded. But suspense mounted. Whispers from his assistant. Family digging into her background. And Elena's discovery of Vostek's subsidiary Link Nod. Was he using her to quash opposition? At a private dinner with his grandmother, Eleanor Voss, the stakes heightened. The elderly woman, frail in silk robes, clasped Elena's hand. You bring light to his shadows. Dear, marry soon. Time slips. Elena's throat tightened. Deception tasted bitter. As they left, Alexander's hand on her back felt possessive. Real. In the elevator, alone, he turned. Thank you, he said softly. For what? She wondered. The act? Or something more? That night, Elena sketched him. Fierce lines capturing his intensity. Emotional intensity built. Suspense whispered of impending fracture. The billionaire's world glittered, but cracks loomed. Dawn broke over Alexander's penthouse. A sprawling eyrie atop the Voss Tech Tower. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the awakening city, where billions churned in digital veins. He paced the marble floors, coffee in hand, replaying the previous night's gala. Elena's laughter, genuine, infectious, had disarmed even Marcus. But her questions lingered like smoke. Was his empire worth the human cost? In the boardroom below, executives gathered for Project Aurora's update. Charts projected holographic profits. $2 billion in returns from luxury towers replacing blighted Brooklyn blocks. Alexander nodded approval, but a twinge hit. Elena's mural site flashed in his mind. He buried it. Business was war, sentiment, weakness. Elena awoke in her cramped apartment. The contract's copy mocking from her nightstand. 100,000. Freedom's price. But last night's dance replayed. His hand on her waist. Eyes locking with unspoken depth. Dangerous. She dressed for their next date. A yacht party on the Hudson. Mingling with investors whose net worth dwarfed nations. The yacht, a floating palace of teak and crystal, bobbed under sunset hues. Elena, in a sapphire dress, navigated conversations laced with veiled barbs. So, how did you snag Alex? A socialite purred. Luck? Or strategy? Quote. Elena smiled tightly. Mutual respect. Alexander watched from afar. Admiration stirring. She held her own amid sharks. Joining her, he slipped an arm around her. Having fun? Quote. Observing the apex predators, she whispered. Their banter crackled, but suspense intruded. Marcus cornered them. Charming fiancé. Cousin. Background check out? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Alexander's grip tightened. Irrelevant. Later. Alone on deck. Wind whipping hair. Elena confronted. What's his issue? Quote. Jealousy. He wants the inheritance. Alexander's voice softened. Grandmother favors me. For now. Emotional vulnerability peaked. Elena touched his arm. You don't have to be alone in this. His eyes met hers. Intensity electric. For a moment, the charade dissolved. He leaned in, then pulled back. We can't. Why not? She thought, heart racing. The line blurred perilously. Back ashore, Alexander dropped her home. In the limo, silence pulsed. Good night, he said, but his gaze lingered. Inside, Elena researched Voss tech deeper. Articles surfaced. Aggressive expansions. Displaced communities. Project Aurora mentioned vaguely. Her stomach knotted. Was she complicit? The following days intensified. Boardroom meetings for Alexander. Negotiating AI contracts worth hundreds of millions. He thrived in the aura. Power's adrenaline. But thoughts of Elena intruded. Softening edges. For her, immersion in his world. Spa days. Fittings. Etiquette lessons. Yet she sketched feverishly. Capturing billionaire excess. Gold-plated excess amid poverty's shadow. A turning point. Weekend at the Hamptons estate. Vast lawns. Ocean views. Servants silent as ghosts. Family gathered. Scrutiny heavy. Grandmother Eleanor wheeled in. Beamed at Elena. Tell me your story, child. Elena wove truths with lies. Artist meets mogul. Sparks fly. But authenticity shone. Her passion for art moved the old woman. Alone with Alexander in the library. Fire crackling. Tension mounted. You're good at this, he admitted. Or maybe it's not all fake, she replied. Voice trembling. He stepped closer. Cologne enveloping. Their kiss exploded. Hungry. Real. Hands roamed. Breaths mingled. Suspense peaked. Would they cross the line? A knock shattered it. Marcus. Smirking. Interrupting? Quote. Alexander stiffened. Out. But damage done. Elena fled to her room. Emotions churning. Desire clashed with doubt. Next morning. Walks on the beach. Alexander confessed fragments. Orphaned young. Grandmother's guidance. Relentless drive. Failure isn't an option. Elena shared her fears. Mother's cancer. Art as escape. Vulnerability bonded them. But suspense lurked. Her growing suspicion of his business ties. Back in the city, Elena sneaked into his study during a late-night visit. Files open. Project Aurora details. Her neighborhood targeted. Heart-shattering. She realized. He knew. Confrontation brewed. Emotional storm gathering. In boardrooms. Alexander sealed deals. Aura unyielding. But privately. He wrestled. Cancel Aurora? For her? A gala loomed. Stakes higher. Family whispers. Elena's background probed. Marcus hinted at dirt. Elena, torn, attended, dressed in red. She dazzled. But inside, betrayal festered. Dancing with Alexander. She whispered, we need to talk. His eyes darkened. Later. Suspense thickened. Emotional intensity at boiling point. The billionaire's glittering life masked fractures. Money's allure couldn't mend hearts. As the night ended, Elena found an email. Anonymous tip on Vostek's evictions. Proof mounted. Would she expose him? Or succumb to love's pull? Alexander, sensing shift, called a midnight meeting. In his penthouse. City lights twinkling. He faced her. What's wrong? Quote. She held back. Tears threatening. The charade teetered on collapse. The boardroom at Voss Tech hummed with tension. Holographic displays flickering like ghosts. Alexander stood at the head, commanding a room of suited executives whose bonuses hinged on his whims. Project Aurora proceeds. He declared. Voice steel. Billions in play. Redevelopment that would cement his legacy. But as projections glowed, Elena's face haunted him. Her kiss on the beach, raw and unscripted, clashed with the cold calculus of profit. He adjourned early, retreating to his office. A file on his desk. Background on Elena. Clean. But notes on her activism against gentrification. Irony twisted his gut. Had he subconsciously chosen her to neutralize a threat? Or was it serendipity? Elena, meanwhile, paced her studio. Paint splattered, hands trembling. The anonymous email burned. Voss Tech subsidiary blueprints for her block's demolition. Aurora. The name seared. How long had he known? She confronted her reflection, eyes red from unshed tears. Love budding amid deception? Foolish. Yet memories assaulted. His vulnerability in the Hamptons. Hand in hers under starlit skies. Emotional intensity gripped her. Hope warring with hurt. She texted him, "Meet me, now." His response, immediate, "My place." The penthouse loomed, a fortress of glass. Alexander greeted her at the door. Shirt sleeves rolled, tie loosened, billionaire armor cracking. "Elena?" Quote. She thrust the printouts forward. "Explain this." His face paled as he scanned. "Where did you get?" Quote. "Does it matter? You're destroying my world while pretending to care." Quote. Suspense hung, air thick. He sank into a leather couch, head in hands. "I acquired Aurora before we met. It's business. Revitalization." Revitalization? She spat. "Evictions. Cultural erasure. My mural. My home." Quote. He rose, eyes pleading. "I didn't connect it to you until recently. I was going to pivot. Invest differently. For you." "Lies," she whispered, tears flowing. Emotional storm raged. He pulled her close. She resisted, then melted. Their kiss this time was desperate, laced with pain. "I can't lose you," he murmured. But she pushed away. "How can I trust?" Quote. The night stretched. Confessions pouring. Alexander revealed Empire's underbelly. Cutthroat deals. Moral compromises for growth. Money's a tool, but it's hollow without purpose. Elena shared her fears. Abandonment's scars. Art as armor. Vulnerability bridged them. But doubt lingered. Next day, boardroom drama escalated. Marcus, sensing weakness, called an emergency meeting. Aurora's stalled? Investors murmur. Alexander glared. "My call." Whispers of sabotage. Marcus leaking to press? Suspense built. Billions teetered. Elena, back home, fielded calls from community activists. "Fight Voss Tech," they urged. Torn. She attended a protest planning. Her heart divided. Alexander, tracking her, felt jealousy spike. Not of men, but her principles. Purer than his gold. A turning point. Grandmother's hospital visit. Eleanor, tubes snaking, grasped their hands. "Promise me happiness," she wheezed. Elena choked back sobs. Deception weighed heavy. Post-visit. In the limo, Alexander proposed, "Marry me. For real." Shock rippled. "What?" Quote. "I've fallen." Elena, cancel Aurora. Start anew. Emotional high soared, but suspense crashed. Was it genuine? Or manipulation to secure inheritance? She hesitated. "Prove it." He nodded, determination fierce. In the boardroom next, he announced, "Aurora pivot. Community focused. No evictions." Executives balked. Stocks dipped. Marcus smirked, softening. "Cousin?" Quote. Alexander ignored. Aura unbroken. But privately. Fear gnawed. Family contesting will? Elena, hearing news, felt hope flicker. They met in Central Park. Autumn leaves swirling. "You did it?" Quote. "For us," he said, kissing her softly. Intimacy deepened. Nights in his penthouse. Bodies entwining with passion's fire. Emotional bonds strengthened. But shadows persisted. An anonymous threat arrived. Expose the fake engagement. Or pay. Suspense intensified. Who knew? Marcus? Investigations began. Alexander's security team dug. Elena's friends warned. Amidst billionaire life glittered, private jets to galas, diamonds gifted, but Elena chafed. Money's allure tempting corruption. A climactic boardroom showdown. Marcus presented evidence. Contract snippets. Fraud. Quote. Alexander countered. Irrelevant. Will's mine. Fists nearly flew. Emotions raw. Elena, witnessing, stood by him. It's real now. But doubt seeded. Had he orchestrated? The part closed on edge. Love tested. Suspense coiling tighter. Sirens wailed in the distance as Alexander stormed out of the Voss tech boardroom. Marcus's accusations still ringing in his ears. The glass walls of the tower reflected a city that never slept. But inside, everything felt like it was unraveling. Billions hung in the balance. Stock prices already twitching from the whispered scandal. Elena waited in his private office, her face pale under the harsh fluorescent lights. She had watched the entire confrontation on the internal security feed he'd left open. What happened? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Marcus has fragments of the original contract, Alexander said, loosening his tie as if it were a noose. He's threatening to leak it all. Prove the engagement was fake from the start. Elena's heart sank. How did he get it? Quote, someone inside. A mole. He paced like a caged animal. The billionaire aura that usually commanded rooms now frayed at the edges. Emotional exhaustion etched lines around his eyes. For the first time, he looked mortal. She stepped toward him, hand reaching for his arm. We'll fight this together. But doubt flickered in her chest. Was this crisis manufactured? A convenient way to bind her closer while he secured the inheritance? She pushed the thought down, hating herself for it. The next 48 hours dissolved into controlled chaos. Lawyers swarmed the penthouse boardroom. Mahogany table buried under stacks of non-disclosure agreements, contingency plans, and damage control strategies. Alexander barely slept, fielding calls from investors whose collective net worth could buy small countries. Money moved in torrents. Shares sold quietly to loyal allies. PR firms hired at astronomical rates. Yet none of it felt like power. It felt like desperately plugging holes in a sinking ship. Elena, meanwhile, slipped back into her old world for air. Community center meetings. Paint under her nails. Activists planning the next rally. They celebrated the Aurora pivot as a victory. But side eyes lingered. Sleeping with the enemy now? One old friend muttered. Guilt gnawed at her. She was defending a man whose empire had once threatened everything she loved. That evening, an anonymous message pinged her phone. Meet me at the Chelsea Gallery. Midnight. I have the truth about Alexander Voss. Against every instinct, she went. The gallery was dark. Security lights casting long shadows over her old canvases. A figure stepped from behind. Corporate cannibalism. Marcus, smug in a trench coat. You're making a mistake trusting him, he said without preamble, handing her a thin folder. The Aurora pivot? Theater. Hidden clauses resume evictions 6 months after the inheritance clears. He's playing you, using your principles to buy time. Elena flipped through the pages. Revised contracts. Emails. Signatures that looked disturbingly like Alexander's. Her stomach churned. Back at the penthouse, rain lashed the windows as she confronted him. Is this real? She threw the folder onto the marble counter. Alexander scanned the documents, fury igniting. Forgeries. Marcus's style. Same phrasing he uses in board memos. He pulled up the originals on his tablet. Timestamps and digital signatures intact, showing full cancellation. I ended it, Elena, completely. Relief flooded her, but the scar remained. Trust, once cracked, didn't heal overnight. They collapsed together on the couch. The storm outside mirroring the one within. He pulled her close, And this time she didn't resist. Their kiss was fierce, almost punishing. Grief and need braided together. Clothes fell away. Bodies sought reassurance in touch. In the dim glow of the city, he whispered against her skin, "I love you." The words hung fragile and new. She answered in kind, but sleep brought restless dreams of crumbling murals and falling towers. Morning brought fresh war. Marcus escalated. Selective leaks to financial media. Headlines screamed, Voss heirs sham engagement? Stocks plunged 12% before lunch. Billions evaporated in hours. Alexander's phone buzzed incessantly. Board members demanded emergency votes. In the hospital, Eleanor Voss's condition deteriorated. Monitors beeped steadily as she summoned them to her bedside. Tubes snaked across frail arms. But her eyes remained sharp. "Tell me the truth, Alex," she rasped. He knelt, Elena's hand in his. The story spilled. The contract. The deception. The love that grew despite it. Tears tracked down Elena's cheeks as she nodded confirmation. Eleanor's lips curved faintly. Then fight for what's real. Happiness isn't inherited. It's chosen. Hours later, she slipped away peacefully. Grief compounded crisis. Funeral arrangements blurred with legal maneuvers. But Elena, digging through old community emails for solace, spotted something. Irregular transfers from a Voss tech shell company to an offshore account. Marcus's signature pattern. Embezzlement. She hesitated only a moment before anonymously tipping Alexander's security team. That night, private investigators raided Marcus's office. Evidence poured out. Falsified documents. Embezzled funds. Paid hackers. By dawn, police escorted him from his penthouse in cuffs. The scandal flipped. Now Marcus was the fraudster. Yet victory tasted bitter. Tabloids feasted on the fake fiancé origin story. Paparazzi camped outside Elena's apartment. Strangers shouted accusations on the street. The billionaire glamour curdled into isolation. One stormy evening, Elena began packing a small bag in the penthouse guest room. "I need space," she told him. Voice breaking. "This world. It's poison." Alexander's face crumpled. "Don't go. Please. We've built something real amid the lies." She paused at the door. Rain drumming against glass. Emotional torrents pulled her both ways. Finally, she dropped the bag and walked into his arms. They held each other as lightning fractured the sky. Fragile but unbroken. The boardroom reconvened days later. Alexander, grief and resolve hardening his features, retained control by razor-thin margins. Project Aurora transformed fully. Affordable housing, arts funding, community ownership stakes. Elena's mural became the centerpiece of a preserved cultural hub. But personal costs lingered. Trust rebuilt slowly. Suspicion a quiet ghost as winter gripped the city. They stood on the penthouse terrace, watching snow blanket Central Park. "Is it enough?" she asked softly. He took her hand. "It has to be." Part 4 closed on a knife's edge. Love enduring, but forever altered by betrayal's sharp shadow. Snow fell softly over Manhattan on the morning of Eleanor Voss's funeral, blanketing the city in hushed white. The cathedral's Gothic spires pierced a pewter sky as black-clad mourners gathered. Titans of industry, old money aristocrats, and a smattering of tabloid photographers held at bay by private security. Alexander stood at the foot of the casket, immaculate in a charcoal overcoat, but his hand trembled slightly as it rested on the polished mahogany. Elena stood beside him, fingers laced through his, anchoring him in the storm of grief and lingering scandal. The service was solemn. Eleanor's favorite Chopin prelude drifting through the vaulted space. When Alexander spoke, his voice, usually so commanding in boardrooms, cracked on the first syllable. He spoke of a woman who had raised him after his parents' death, who had taught him that true wealth lay not in balance sheets but in legacy of character. Elena's eyes burned with tears. She had only known Eleanor briefly. Yet the old woman's quiet approval had meant everything in their fractured charade. Afterward, at the family estate in Westchester, snow crunched under tires as limousines lined the drive. In the wood-paneled study where portraits of stern Voss ancestors glared down, Alexander addressed the extended family. Marcus was conspicuously absent, still facing charges. But his allies lingered, eyes wary. "No more division," Alexander said, voice steady now. "The inheritance is settled, but the Voss legacy changes today. Ethical innovation, community investment, profit with purpose." He laid out new directives. A $1 billion foundation seeded from his personal fortune, focused on affordable housing and arts preservation in the very neighborhoods once targeted by Aurora. Murmurs rippled, some approving, others skeptical, but money spoke loudest. Dissent quieted. That night, back in the penthouse, Alexander found Elena on the terrace, watching snow swirl over Central Park. The city lights blurred into watercolor halos. "I meant every word," he said quietly, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "It's not damage control. It's who I want to be. With you." She leaned back against him, the warmth of his body chasing winter's chill. Yet questions lingered in the silence. Could a life built on deception ever fully shed its shadows? Spring arrived with tentative warmth. The revamped Project Aurora broke ground. Not with demolition, but restoration. Elena's mural, once threatened, now anchored a vibrant cultural plaza. Galleries, studios, affordable lofts. She curated the opening exhibition herself, her own work hanging beside emerging artists from the neighborhood. Alexander attended incognito at first, pride glowing in his eyes as critics praised the project that bore no Voss branding. Done anonymously, as Eleanor would have liked. Their relationship deepened in quiet moments away from the spotlight. Weekends in a modest Catskills cabin. No staff, no security. Alexander learned to chop wood. Elena taught him to mix paints. They talked for hours. His childhood fears of poverty, her terror of losing her mother to illness. Therapy sessions, separate and joint, unearthed old wounds. Trust rebuilt brick by brick. Vulnerability by vulnerability. One golden autumn afternoon in Central Park, Alexander led her to Bow Bridge. Tourists milled nearby, but his security kept a discreet perimeter. He dropped to one knee, a small velvet box in hand. No flash, no photographers, just them. The ring was simple, a single emerald flanked by tiny diamonds, echoing the first gown he'd ever seen her wear. "Elena Harper," he said, voice thick with emotion. "I don't want a contract or an inheritance clause. I want forever. The real one. Marry me?" Quote. Tears spilled as she nodded. Yes. 1,000 times. Yes. The wedding was intimate. 50 guests on a Brooklyn rooftop overlooking the East River. Elena's restored mural formed the backdrop, vibrant colors glowing under string lights. She wore a flowing ivory dress with embroidered autumn leaves. Alexander, a tailored navy suit minus the tie. Her mother, frail but beaming, walked her down the aisle. Community artists played jazz. Voss tech executives mingled awkwardly with activists. Two worlds, finally overlapping without fracture. Their vows were raw, promises to choose truth daily, to challenge each other's blind spots, to build something greater than empire or art alone. Honeymoon, a quiet villa on the Amalfi Coast, days of sun and sea. Nights tangled in linen sheets. Laughter returned easily. Touches carried no hesitation. On a cliffside terrace, watching sunset paint the water gold, Elena rested her head on his shoulder. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked, walking away from the old way. Quote. He considered, then kissed her temple. I gained everything that matters. Years passed. Voss Tech thrived under ethical mandates. AI for public good. Profit margins still enviable. Elena's career soared. Commissions. Residencies. A foundation of her own mentoring young artists from underserved communities. Their daughter, Elena Harper Voss, named for the grandmother she would only know through stories, was born on a crisp December morning. She had her mother's auburn curls and her father's intense gaze. Alexander, once terrified of fatherhood, became the dad who built blanket forts and attended every school play. Elena painted their life in sweeping canvases. Family portraits where billionaire trappings faded against love's vivid foreground. Some evenings, they returned to the penthouse terrace where so much had fractured and healed. The city sprawled below, a glittering testament to ambition. But now, Alexander's arm around Elena felt like home, not performance. The fake engagement had begun with calculation and necessity. It ended not in fiasco, but in the quiet redemption of two hearts learning that true wealth wasn't measured in billions or brushstrokes, but in the courage to choose each other. Again and again, snow fell once more as they stood there, a light dusting like the morning of the funeral. Elena smiled up at him. Happy ending? She teased softly. He pulled her closer. No, happy beginning. And in the hush of falling snow, beneath the boundless New York sky, their story, suspense resolved, emotion eternal, continued.